I want you to try a quick mental exercise for a second. Imagine picking up a pen and just writing your signature on a piece of paper.
Oh, yeah. You don't even have to look at it.
Exactly. You don't look at the paper, the loops, the pressure, the speed, it just flows right out of you. It's completely automatic. But now imagine placing that exact same pen in your non-dominant hand.
That is a wildly different experience.
Right. Think about how much focus it would take to write that exact same signature.
Hmm.
All right, your hand would shake, you'd be staring intensely at the paper, and honestly, it would just feel incredibly exhausting.
Well, yeah, because it requires a completely different level of cognitive effort. The first scenario is effortless, but the second one is this active, demanding struggle for your brain.
And that feeling, that shaky, exhausting, conscious struggle, that is exactly what it feels like when you are trying to start a new habit.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you're trying to meditate every morning or stretch before bed or actually read those books that are piling up on your nightstand instead of just scrolling on your phone, you genuinely want to do it, but it just feels so incredibly hard to start.
Yeah, the friction is just huge.
It is. So today's deep dive into the source material is going to completely demystify behavior design for you. We've pulled together some of the most fascinating research on this topic, including, James Clear's Atomic Habits, BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits, and key psychological studies from researchers like Catherine Milkman and Philippa Lally.
It's some of the best material out there on why we do what we do.
Yeah. And we're going to explore this surprisingly simple, science-backed shortcut called habit stacking.
Which is, it's a concept that fundamentally shifts how you approach your daily routines. It moves you away from relying on sheer motivation, which we all know fails, and moves you toward this strategic architectural design of your behavior.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we talk about how to build new habits using this method, I feel like we need to look under the hood. What is actually happening physically in our brains with the habits we already have? Like I'm thinking about that effortless signature.
Right. So to understand the physical architecture of the brain's habits, we really have to look at how the brain manages its energy.
Okay.
When you're doing something brand new, like writing with your non-dominant hand or, I don't know, trying a new workout routine, your brain uses the prefrontal cortex.
Which is like the conscious thinking part of the brain, right?
Exactly. It's responsible for conscious thought, complex decision-making, focus. But the catch here is that the prefrontal cortex requires a massive amount of metabolic energy to function.
Wow, okay.
It drains its battery very quickly.
So, which means relying on the prefrontal cortex to drag you to the gym every single day is essentially setting yourself up for failure because that energy reserve is just going to empty out.
Yeah, you'll burn out. Because the brain is, it's an incredibly efficient organ. It actually evolved to conserve precious energy whenever it possibly can.
That makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint.
Right. So through a process of reinforcement learning, as you repeat a behavior over and over, the brain actually shifts the control of that action away from the prefrontal cortex. It pushes it down into this older, deeper structure called the basal ganglia.
The basal ganglia, okay.
Yeah, and the basal ganglia is associated with motor control and automated actions. It runs in the background, totally automating the action through a really specific neurological feedback loop.
And I know that loop is broken down into 4 distinct parts, right?
Yes. The loop consists of the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward.
Okay, so cue, craving, response, reward. Break that down for me.
So the cue triggers the brain to initiate the behavior. Then the craving provides the motivational pull. And this is where dopamine comes in, by the way. Not just as a reward, but as the anticipation of the reward that actually compels you to act.
Oh, interesting. So the craving happens before the action.
Exactly. Then you have the response, which is the actual habit you perform. And finally, the reward reinforces the whole loop, teaching your brain that, hey, this particular sequence is worth remembering and repeating in the future.
So once this cycle is locked into the basal ganglia, the behavior just becomes completely automatic. You no longer have to consciously decide to do it.
Right, you just do it.
I want to visualize this for a second. Let's think of the brain like a really dense forest.
Well, I like that.
The habits you do every single day, like brewing your morning coffee or locking your front door when you leave for work, they're like wide, paved highways cutting right through that forest. And the brain loves taking these highways because there's zero friction.
And, there is a literal biological mechanism behind that highway metaphor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a process called myelination. When a neural pathway is used repeatedly, the brain actually coats those nerve fibers in a fatty substance called myelin.
Myelin, okay.
Right. And myelin acts like like insulation on an electrical wire. It prevents the electrical signal from leaking and allows it to travel significantly faster and just way more efficiently.
So your daily habits are quite literally insulated high-speed neural pathways.
Literally, yes.
Wow. So a new habit, on the other hand, is a brand new trail. It is completely overgrown. When you try to start meditating out of nowhere, you are essentially standing at the edge of the woods with a machete, trying to hack your way through the thick underbrush.
Yes, exactly. Because there's no myelin insulating that pathway yet. It is exhausting.
So when we fail to start a new habit, it's not a character flaw or a lack of discipline. It's literally just that we're trying to hack through the thick underbrush of the brain instead of taking the highway.
That is exactly right. And what's fascinating here is just how dependent our daily lives are on those insulated highways. Wendy Widge, she's a researcher at USC, she found that about 43% of our daily behavior is repeated in the exact same context.
Wait, 43%? Almost half.
Almost half. Almost half of everything you do today will be done automatically, without conscious thought, simply because you are in the same environment where you usually do those things.
That's incredible.
The brain defaults to the paved highway to save energy. It's just an evolutionary survival mechanism.
Well, this brings us to the core mechanism of habit stacking, I think. Because if our brains already have these wide paved highways with built-in cues running automatically in the basal ganglia, it seems incredibly inefficient to grab a machete and start hacking a new path.
Right. Why do the extra work?
Exactly. The most efficient way to learn a new behavior would be to just hitch a ride on an old one. You just, take an exit off the highway you're already driving on.
And that right there is the underlying mechanic of habit stacking. B.J. Fogg, who founded the Stanford Behavior Design Lab, he formalized this in his Tiny Habits framework. He calls them anchor habits.
Anchor habits, right.
Yeah. And then James Clear later popularized the specific term habit stacking. But the formula is deeply rooted in this neuroscience of automaticity we just talked about. You simply state, after my current habit, I will do my new habit.
But there has to be a strict rule for choosing that current habit, right? I mean,
Well,
you can't just pick any random thing you do during the day to be your anchor.
no, you absolutely cannot. In fact, choosing the wrong anchor is probably the most common point of failure with this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the anchor habit must be highly specific, it must be daily, and it must be reliable.
Yeah.
If your anchor is vague, the whole stack collapses.
Can you give me an example of a vague one?
Sure. Saying, after lunch, I will meditate. That is incredibly weak because lunch isn't a specific moment. It's this broad window of time.
Right, because lunch could mean eating at your desk while answering emails or going out with a coworker or just standing at the kitchen counter eating a sandwich. The environment and the physical cues keep changing every day.
Exactly. And the brain struggles without a concrete trigger. A window of time just doesn't provide a binary go signal for the basal ganglia.
Ah, okay.
But if you change it to, after I put my lunch plate in the dishwasher, I will meditate, you now have a specific, undeniable physical action that happens consistently. That is a reliable anchor.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's translate this into the real world for you listening right now. We can look at 3 super clear, everyday examples of habit stacking to see how this architecture actually plays out.
Perfect.
Example number 1, morning coffee. Many people have a vague goal like, I want to journal more. But that requires hacking through the underbrush.
Yep. High friction.
But making coffee is a deeply ingrained, heavily myelinated routine. It takes the same 90 seconds every single day. So your habit stack becomes, after I pour my morning coffee, I will write 3 lines in my journal.
Yeah.
You use the physical act of pouring the coffee as the trigger.
And notice the scale of the new habit in that example. 3 lines, not 3 pages.
Right. Just 3 lines. Okay. Example number 2. Brushing your teeth. You do it twice a day, no questions asked. If you want to exercise more, your stack could be, after I brush my teeth, I will do 10 squats.
I love that one.
The physical act of putting the toothbrush back in the holder is unmistakable. It sets up the exercise without any mental negotiation. The cue just fires.
It totally bypasses the prefrontal cortex's tendency to overthink or analyze how tired you are and, basically talk you out of the effort.
Exactly. You just drop and do the squats. And then example number 3. Charging your phone. We all know the trap of getting into bed and doom scrolling for an hour.
Oh, yeah. The worst.
Right. To intercept that, utilize an existing nightly anchor. After I plug my phone in to charge at night, I will read 1 page of a book. You already plug the phone in every night. By immediately picking up a book for just one page, you replace a draining habit with a positive one, using a cue that's already locked into your routine.
And if we look at the underlying structure of those three examples, there's a common thread that James Clear refers to as the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule.
Yeah. When you're stacking a new habit, the new behavior must take less than 2 minutes to complete.
Oh, wow. So really short.
Really short. Write 3 lines, do 10 squats, read 1 page. The key is keeping the addition tiny to lower the activation cost.
Because you're just trying to establish the connection, right?
Exactly. You are trying to attach a new action to an existing neural pathway. If the new action is too heavy or demands too much energy, the connection will just snap. You have to establish the neural link first. You can always optimize and expand the scale of the habit later once the pathway is actually insulated.
Okay, but this formula, after I do X, I will do Y. It sounds almost too simplistic. I mean, does just writing down a single sentence structure really change human behavior on a statistical level?
It actually does. There is a wealth of psychological data proving it. In the broader field of psychology, this concept was actually formalized by Peter Gollwitzer as implementation intentions.
Implementation intentions. That
Yes,
sounds
there's-
very academic.
It does, but it's simple. An implementation intention is essentially creating an if-then plan. It bridges the gap between a goal intention like, I want to be healthier, and a concrete behavioral script.
Because goal intentions are just too vague.
Right. They leave all the execution details completely open to interpretation. When, where, how. In the moment of decision, when you're tired or distracted, your brain will invariably choose the path of least resistance. But the if-then plan makes the decision in advance.
And we found some incredible data on this involving flu vaccinations, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Right.
So there's a massive study conducted by behavioral economist Catherine Milkman. She looked at how to get employees to actually follow through and get their flu shots.
Okay.
So they sent out a mailing with the dates and locations of the clinic. The control group simply received the information, just the facts.
Right.
Their vaccination rate was 33%. But the experimental group received the exact same information, plus one tiny addition. They were asked to physically write down the date and time they planned to go.
Oh, so they were filling in an implementation intention.
Exactly. And their vaccination rate jumped to 72%.
Wait, really? From 33 to 72? That is more than double the follow-through, just from filling in the when and where. So what does this all mean for the listener? Does just writing down the when and where actually trick the brain?
Well, this raises an important point. It's a profound reduction in cognitive load rather than a trick.
How so?
When you use an if-then plan or a habit stack, you're fundamentally shifting the balance of behavioral forces. To understand why this works, we could look at the SUE influence framework. In any scenario where you're trying to change behavior, there are 3 forces at play. You have the gains pushing you forward, the pains acting as friction, and the comforts pulling you backward.
Okay, so the gains would be like the desire to be healthy. The pains would be the effort of actually going to the gym. And the comforts would be the massive gravity well of the couch and Netflix.
That's a perfect example. Good intentions rely entirely on the motivation of the games. But motivation is an emotion, and emotions fluctuate.
True.
The pains and the comforts, though, they are structural.
Yeah.
They're always there. The gravity of the couch doesn't fluctuate.
Sadly, no, it does not.
Right. So when you're forced to make a decision in real time, the cognitive load of weighing the gains against the pains usually leads the brain to just surrender to the comforts.
But by pre-linking the situation to the action through a habit stack, the decision is already made.
Yes, the trigger happens, and the behavioral script executes. You bypass that debate phase entirely, avoiding the gravitational pull of your comforts.
Wow. Okay, I understand the mechanics of removing the cognitive load and leveraging anchor habits. That makes total sense. But I have to push back on the scale of these examples for a minute.
Okay, go for it.
Writing 3 lines in a journal, doing 10 squats, reading 1 single page of a book. These actions are microscopic. If my ultimate goal is to, say, completely transform my physical health, doing 10 squats after I brush my teeth feels entirely disconnected from the magnitude of that goal. How does something that small actually create meaningful change?
That is the big question. It creates a paradox for many people because we are so conditioned to expect massive physical results from massive physical efforts.
Right. Go big or go home.
Exactly. But to understand the impact of 10 squats, we have to elevate the discussion beyond physical metrics and look at the psychological impact on your self-image.
Self-image. Okay.
James Clear introduces this concept called the 3 layers of behavior change. Picture an onion with 3 concentric circles. The outermost layer is outcomes. This is what you get. Losing weight, publishing a book, saving money. Most people start here, formulating outcome-based habits.
The classic New Year's resolution approach, like, I want to lose 20 pounds.
Yes. And then the middle layer is processes. This is what you do. Going to the gym, writing 1,000 words a day, following a budget. But the innermost core layer is identity.
The core of the onion.
Right. This is what you believe. It encompasses your worldview, your biases, and your self-image. Outcome-based habits focus on what you want to achieve. Identity-based habits focus on who you want to become.
Oh, I see.
The goal isn't to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. When your habits align with your identity, you don't need to summon external motivation. You act because it is simply an expression of who you already are.
But you can't just declare a new identity in the mirror and expect your brain to believe it, right? I mean, you have to provide proof.
You absolutely do. According to self-consistency theory, humans are highly motivated to maintain a coherent self-concept. We really want our actions to match our internal beliefs. And the way you shift those internal beliefs is by gathering evidence.
And that's where the tiny habits come in.
Precisely. This is why those tiny, seemingly insignificant habits are so vital. Every action you take is essentially a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
A vote. I like that.
Yeah. Doing 10 squats isn't about the physical muscle mass you build in that specific 2-minute window. It's about proving to your brain, indisputably, I am someone who exercises daily.
So you cast enough of those tiny votes, and eventually the internal scale tips. You start acting like a healthy person because you have proven to yourself that you are one.
Exactly. And the mathematics behind these small daily votes are actually staggering. This is often referred to as the 1% rule.
Okay, what is the 1% rule?
Well, if you can get just 1% better each day for 1 year, you don't just add progress, you compound it. Mathematically, improving by 1% daily yields a result that is 37 times better by the end of the year.
37 times. That's wild.
It is. Every time you run your tiny habit stack, you cast a vote for your new identity, and that evidence compounds.
That compounding sounds incredibly powerful, but it also sounds like it requires a massive time horizon. Our culture expects, like, a 30-day transformation program.
Oh, for sure.
How long does it actually take to myelinate that pathway and make a new habit automatic?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we actually have concrete data on that timeline. And it does require a fundamental shift in our expectations. Filippo Lally and our colleagues at University College London, they conducted a study to determine exactly how long it takes for a new behavior to become fully automatic.
Because for decades, popular psychology promoted that myth that it takes 21 days to form a habit, right?
Right, the 21-day myth. It's everywhere. But Lally's research found that the median time it takes for a new habit to reach automaticity is actually 66 days.
66 days is significantly longer than 3 weeks. And I imagine that median involves a fairly wide range depending on what the habit is, right?
Oh, absolutely. The range was incredibly broad. It was anywhere from 18 days to 254 days.
254 days. Wow.
Yeah. A simple habit, like drinking a glass of water after breakfast, might only take 18 days because the physical complexity and the required effort are extremely low. But a more complex routine, like going for a run before dinner, that introduces numerous variables, like weather, fatigue, changing clothes.
Right, way more friction.
Exactly. That can take up to 254 days of casting daily votes before the pathway actually becomes a paved highway.
Over 8 months of effort for a complex habit. That highlights exactly why starting with a 2-minute habit stack is basically non-negotiable.
It really is.
I mean, trying to force a complex, heavy habit through sheer prefrontal cortex willpower is going to lead to burnout long before you hit day 66, let alone day 200. But wait, what happens if you're like 40 days in and you miss a day? Does the pathway just degrade?
This is the best part. Lally's study found a deeply reassuring data point regarding failure. Missing one single day did not measurably derail the habit formation process.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, the neurological pathway does not collapse overnight. Returning to that voting metaphor, missing one day doesn't mean you lose the election. It is simply one missed vote. The goal isn't absolute perfection. The goal is just to ensure the majority of the votes are going toward the identity you want to build. Patience is literally a biological necessity when you're rewiring the basal ganglia.
Wow. Okay, let's pull all of this together for you listening right now. We started by exploring the physical architecture of the brain, Realize that our automatic routines run on insulated high-speed neural pathways in the basal ganglia.
Yep.
We learned that trying to force a new habit through willpower alone just completely drains the prefrontal cortex. So to bypass that exhaustion, we use the magic formula of habit stacking. After X, I will Y.
Keep it simple.
Right. We select a rock-solid, incredibly specific, daily, anchor-like, putting a plate in the dishwasher or plugging in a phone, and we attach a tiny 2-minute new behavior to it. We use if-then implementation intentions to pre-make the decision, stripping away the cognitive load and bypassing that massive gravitational pull of our daily comforts.
Which is huge.
And finally, we remembered that these tiny actions, they aren't about massive, immediate physical results. They are daily votes cast for the new identity we are building day by day, compounding over time.
It is a profound shift from relying on fluctuating emotions to relying on structural architectural design within your own life.
So, here is your mission for today. Pick just one anchor habit, something you do every single day without fail. Maybe it's turning off your morning alarm or taking off your work shoes when you walk through the door. Pick that anchor and attach a 2-minute new habit to it. Write down your implementation intention. After I do my anchor, I will do my new habit, and just run that single tiny stack for 2 weeks. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just cast that one tiny vote today. Keep stacking those tiny habits, and we will see you on the next deep dive. But we want to leave you with one final provocative piece of this puzzle that we uncovered in the source material.
Yeah, this is something to really chew on. We have spent this time discussing how our internal habits are triggered by specific behavioral cues. But this really brings up the concept of environment design.
Right.
If our automatic habits are triggered by the physical things we interact with, what happens if we intentionally engineer our physical spaces to force our habit stacks to be unavoidable?
Like hacking the physical world.
Exactly. This is where behavior design borders on environmental architecture. For instance, if you place your journal directly on top of the coffee maker every night before bed, you literally cannot physically make your morning coffee without moving the journal. You have engineered the cue into the environment.
You literally can't ignore it.
Right. And it's just a fascinating question about human nature. How much of our so-called character or discipline is actually just the invisible architecture of the rooms we live in?
Oh, wow.
If a person lives in a home where the TV remote is always on the coffee table, but their books are hidden away in some dusty guest room, is it a lack of discipline that they watch TV every night? Or is it simply bad environment design?
That is such a good question.
It suggests that we aren't entirely the masters of our willpower, but rather we are the highly adaptable products of the spaces we inhabit.